Hey you guys, and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you what is in my Ferret Emergency Kit. Lucy. Lulu. Lucy. Do it. Show them how you do it. Go ahead. Good girl. Oh, Lucy, you're such a good girl. Look at you getting your cardio in. I love you so freaking much. Back to our regularly scheduled program. So, I'm going to be going over my Ferret Emergency Kit. Just want to preface this whole video with, I'm not a vet. Now, I know y'all know that, but I just want to say that for anybody who pops up and sees this video, this is literally the things that I use. These are things that I have confirmed are okay to use with my ferrets through my personal vet. These are things that I've done over the years through experience and just whatever. Make a long story short, if you're concerned or you're unsure, speak to your vet. If you want to speak to your vet on your next appointment before an emergency happens and say, hey, what's some things I can do if I can't get a hold of you? What do you recommend that I use to help keep my ferret hydrated? Or what can I use if they're nauseous? Or what can I use if they're having diarrhea? Like, talk to your vet so that when an emergency happens, you have that information on hand. That's kind of how I have this information. So just sharing with you my experience. Please consult your vet if you have any concerns, questions, if you want to get your own recommendations. I urge you to be cautious taking information from online, Facebook, YouTube, all of it. I'm going to share my experience, but that what works for some people may not work for others, and I just want to be real clear about that. Alright, so let's just start the video. Here's what I use. I have this Ferret Emergency chart. I got it from the Pickled Ferret Piler on Etsy. It's amazing. Basically, the front page is a bunch of symptoms and kind of what those symptoms could mean. And the back is medications that you can give to your ferrets, the dosages, the recommendations on the what brand and all of that, and then a list of things that you should keep in your Ferret Emergency Kit. I will highly recommend that you get one. They're like $4, and I love this thing. I reference this in so many emergencies, I can't even tell you. I don't have that many emergencies, but in emergencies, this has been an amazing resource. It just comes in handy. It's really been very helpful. Keeping your ferrets hydrated when they are sick is super important. You can give your ferrets unflavored Pedialyte. Just grab it at any store, really, because it's actually for children. You want to give 1 to 2 tablespoons every hour and a half or so. You may end up having to do that with a syringe, so having syringes on hand is essential. I just bought a box of these off of Amazon. They're 1 ml syringes. They look like this. Kind of the same thing your vet gives you when your pet's sick. So I also have this one, which I use for more when I'm crushing up pills, or there's a pill that has to be given that has to be crushed up and diluted with water. These bigger syringes are really helpful. So in addition to that, I keep 2 kinds of critical care or emergency care. This you can get on Amazon. Make sure you get the carnivore brand. This will be really good if they're sick. It helps to keep them, they need to eat. It's important. You may have to syringe feed them. If you don't, ideally you don't have to syringe feed them. That is preferable. When you're shooting syringes into their mouth, you run the risk of having it go in their lungs and giving them pneumonia. So it's really important. Can we not terrorize Mama's emergency kit? I love you. Okay, sorry. The tripod shaking, they're literally all over my stuff right now, which is fine. That's okay. Let's show everybody how helpful you're being. Okay, if at all possible, and you're struggling to get your ferrets to eat, before you syringe feed and start shoving syringes down their throat, try a metal spoon. Oftentimes ferrets will eat stuff off a metal spoon. I've been really successful at this, specifically when trying to get them to try new things like Duke soup or something like that. If not, obviously you have to use the syringe. Just make sure that you're going slow when you're putting the syringe and you're using the syringe, and that you're not like pushing it into their mouth. Just be really careful and try to go from the side instead of directly down the front. Just because you don't want it to end up in their lungs, they can get like aspiration pneumonia from that. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I just want to make sure people realize like shoving it down their throat is dangerous. So these I keep on these on. Oh, so and then I keep this red and white bag, which is emergency. It's also like a carnivore care, but I get it from my vet. This one is made with soy, which is why they tend to take to this one better. I have not seen this one sold, not over the counter. So this came from my vet, and my ferrets prefer this one, but I have them both. In addition, I have Duke Soup, which I keep on hand. I use this a lot when giving medications. For example, Ruby takes prednisolone for her insulin, and she doesn't love the way it tastes, so I mix it in soup, and that makes life so much easier. So that's that. There's a thing called pooping pumpkin, which I don't believe I have on hand at the moment, but if your ferrets have diarrhea or they're going through some sort of blockage, having that on hand is really helpful. It's definitely helped Weasel. I'll put a link to it. So that's something else that I normally have on hand that I don't have currently because we used it all. So there's that. Also Vaseline. So if you need to take their temperature, this is obviously good for rectal temperatures. I can be honest, I've never done that, and don't plan to unless I have to. It's also good for hairballs. So let's say you think your ferret has a hairball, you don't have any ferret lax, or you have ferret lax and it's not working, or something to that effect. This will work. Also, I keep a treat oil, whether that's a salmon oil. I personally use pickled ferret juice. This is also a treat. It's a salmon oil. There's no pickles in this. If you are not familiar with the pickled ferret, please know that it's just the name on the bottle. There's no pickles in this bottle. Ferrets are carnivores, and while there is emu oil in this, it is in a dose that's not critical to ferrets, and so pickled ferret juice. We also keep on hand babies. You are being crazy, and I love you so much. Yes. If your ferrets have low blood sugar, or you suddenly see where they look like they have low blood sugar, they start to crash or have some sort of seizure or something like that, and you believe it's blood sugar related, you can take some Cairo syrup, you can use honey, you can use regular syrup, you want to rub it on their gums. This will help kind of bring them back around. Just like a diabetic, it's like a sugar crash. They're having a sugar crash, and so you need to uncrash them, and this is the best way to do that. I've honestly done this a couple of times, once or twice with Weasel and definitely with Lucy, and it has been amazing at helping get them back up and regulated and running until we can figure out what the heck is going on. Do not give your ferrets this under any other circumstances. There's no reason on God's creation they should ever have this except for in those situations. And my vet, along with this Ferret Emergency Chart and online, will all tell you to keep something like this on hand in case of emergencies. But it is not a treat. It's not something that we use as a treat. It's strictly for medical purposes. In addition to that, I keep the Alpha Track. I have the Alpha Track 3, but there is an Alpha Track 2, although it's harder to find because they've come out with the newer model. This is a blood testing kit. So this is to test blood sugar. I used this on Lucy when I was trying to make sure that she had insulin so I could report it back to my vet. There is a great video from the Modern Ferret on how to use this, and the way that she uses the Alpha Track 2 is basically the exact same way that you use the Alpha Track 3. So I'll put a link to her video in my description. I honestly used her video when learning how to use this, so thank you very much, because anyway, very helpful. This is something that I keep on hand. It's really been kind of helpful in diagnosing or helping getting a diagnosis when your vet is unable to, their blood sugar's either coming up normal or they're not having a crash at the time that you're at the vet. So doing a blood sugar test at that point doesn't really show what it needs to in order to get the diagnosis. Keeping a record on hand and then bringing it into your vet is helpful. So there's that. Pardon me, you little nosy posy. Nail clippers, essential. Along with my nail clippers, we keep septic powder. If you don't have this and you cut the quick or something like that with your ferrets, snails, or your other animals, cornstarch works as also, but this actually does work a little bit better. I've only cut the quick once, thank God. That was many, many years ago, about 5.5 years ago with Bear. And thank God, knock on wood, haven't done it since. But it's a good thing to have on hand. You can obviously use it with your other animals if you have other animals. So something to think about. In addition to that, we also keep triple antibiotic ointment. Again, I've never had to use this, but if they have a cut or something like that, this is helpful to have, along with, Q-tips, gauze, bandages. Again, keep them on hand. You probably have them on hand for yourself. Okay, pill cutter, very important. For some of the medications or things that you may be told to give your ferrets, or in emergencies, do you have to give your ferret, you're going to more than likely need to cut those pills up and crush them in order to get the dosing right. So having a pill cutter on hand is super easy to make. It just makes life easy. You stick the pill in, you cut it however many times you need to, crush it up, life is good. Pill cutter. They're like they're very inexpensive. Okay, on to the medications, which I'm going to preface this again by saying you can speak to your vet or confirm with your vet the dosages. The dosages are on the chart. The dosages are probably also online. So there's, I'm not going to go dose by dose through all these medications, or we'll be here till next Tuesday. But this is children's Benadryl. Sometimes your vet will recommend that you give this before vaccines. They sometimes recommend that you give it for allergies or things like that. The dosage, like I said, you can find online on the chart, and your vet can absolutely give you the dosage. I actually got the dosage for this from my vet, which happened to be the same as the dosage that was recommended on the chart that I got from the Pickle Ferret Piler. So in addition to that, we keep antidiarrheal. This is like Imodium, but you don't, in an ideal world, you're not using the name brand, and the reason for that is the name brands will often have additional medications in it that are not good for the ferrets. So the idea is that you're just using the ingredient, the antidiarrheal ingredient only. And the way that this works is that there is a dosage that you give. You cut this pill, however it's told, you're advised to cut it. I think you cut it in half, but I have to look. And then you dilute it with water after you crush it, and then you give it out in dosages. So when I make one of these, like let's say I'm going to make some Imodium for Weasel when he was around, one of the pills would make me 10 dosages of medication. It really does need to be diluted. It's really important that you're looking up the dosages. So we keep an antidiarrheal. We keep the generic version. This is from good old Walmart. I also keep an antacid. Weasel had really bad ulcers, and so having that kind of stuff on hand was so critical to him, especially if I couldn't get him to a vet right away or he really wasn't feeling good. He always got sick on holidays. So this is Pepsit. This is the generic for Pepsit. I don't know if it's gonna again, this is the Walmart brand. Same kind of deal. You have to chop this up and dilute it in water. As far as keeping medications that my ferrets didn't use, like antibiotics or something like that, I do keep some of them, just because it's good to have them on hand. But I don't give my ferrets antibiotics. Like, I don't give Prince Weasel's antibiotics unless I talk to my vet. And the reason for that is because, let's say that, for example, I took Weasel to the vet before he passed away, and the antibiotics which they normally use, which is metronidazole, they didn't. They gave him something different. Had I taken the metronidazole that I had here from a couple months ago that was still in date and good to use and given it to Weasel under my own administration, I would have given him the wrong medication. So I highly recommend that you speak to your vet if you keep your leftover antibiotics or something like that. Maybe speak to your vet before you start doling them out. That would be my recommendation. Just because antibiotics are a little bit different. Especially when you're talking about building up tolerances and different antibiotics being used to treat different types of illnesses. Boys, do we have to shake? Do we have to do that now? Okay, they're playing. So. But basically, those are the things that are in my Ferret Emergency Kit. They are really helpful. I highly recommend that you have a Ferret Emergency Kit. You don't got to go out and buy everything in one clip. Some of this stuff came over time. Some of this stuff you just have on hand because it's regular stuff that you're using in your house anyway. But yeah, this is basically what's in my kit. I always get people asking me what's in there. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to pull this out for different situations and how helpful it's been over the years. My kit has also gotten bigger as time's gone on. As my ferrets age, my kit seems to get bigger and end up having more stuff in it. But it's definitely been something that I'm really grateful that I have, and has definitely gotten me through situations when my vet has not been around. Prime example, right before Weasel passed, he got sick on July 3rd in the evening. It was about 8:30 when it started. My vet was not in the office on July 4th. The vet in the Maryland ER were not in the office on July 4th. So Weasel couldn't be seen until Friday morning. So I had to do I was giving him, I knew he had a stomach problem. I could tell by his behaviors, I could tell how he was acting, and so I was giving him things to help his tummy, which actually worked. I was able to feed him, was able to keep him hydrated. So by the time we got to the vet on Friday, even though he ended up not getting better, that was because of the cancer, but I was able to keep him semi-comfortable and alive until we could get him to the vet where he could be treated properly. And yeah, so it's definitely something that comes in handy, and I will put links to everything that I can in the description of my video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, hug your ferrets. Just hug your ferrets, because their time with you is short and you will miss them when they're not here. I just lost Weasel, for those of you who may have missed my prior video. It's a little emotional. Thanks, guys.